Hi, everybody. Good morning. It is Thursday, March 19th. We are back to normal today. So this video, make sure you have enough time to watch it. Will probably be about 30 minutes. And I will leave you to do the activity that I will post with this video on Google Classroom. Before we get into the lesson, just some important things that I need to say. A lot of people were having issues with watching the video yesterday. I got a lot of comments, emails, texts. If that happens, you should always try to download the video. When I downloaded the video, it fixed the issue. When you go to download the video, it will say something like, there might be a virus or something like that. There's no virus. It's coming from me. It's coming from my computer. So you don't have to worry about any viruses. So starting today, if you're having trouble with the video, please download it. If you're still having trouble with the video after you download it, please reach out to me. But first, try to download it. That should solve the issue. Also, the videos, all the directions that are in the videos will also be written on Google Classroom. So you should be able to get most of your information in those written directions as well. Starting today, the assignments will be due tonight by midnight. So we gave you an extension for the Monday assignment because there was some confusion around it and students needed to get their Wi-Fi figured out, make sure that they had a Chromebook, things like that. It's been a couple days. Starting today, work is due tonight. We will not be giving extensions unless you reach out to Miss Cromartie and I and tell us that you are having a Chromebook or Wi-Fi issue. In that case, Miss Cromartie and I will help you with that. That being said, yesterday the whole 6th grade team called all of your families, and we found out those of you that are having Wi-Fi issues or Chromebook issues. So we know who you are, and we are working on helping you. Some families we did not get directly in touch with. We had to leave messages. So I'm going to ask again that you reach out to your friends, tell them what's going on, what the work expectations are for ELA, science, math. Make sure that your friends know what's going on in case we have not gotten in touch with their families yet. For those of you that are still struggling with the device that you have at home, you should go to bostonpublicschools.org/laptop. If you're having issues with Wi-Fi, you should go to internetessentials.com, or you can call 855-846-8376. I'm going to hold that up to the screen so you can get those pieces of information if you need to. And if that wasn't enough time, you can pause the video and write those down. Like I said, today's lesson, we're back to normal, so please grab your notebook. If you don't have a notebook, please grab a piece of paper. Please grab a pencil, or if you don't have a pencil, something to write with. And also grab your Dragon Wings book if you were in school on Monday and took one home. If not, the Dragon Wings readings will be posted with this video. So notebook or piece of paper, pencil or something to write with, Dragon Wings book, or the Dragon Wings readings open on your computer. That being said, we're going to go ahead and get started. Our do now today, our vocab word is revolutionary. Revolutionary means Someone who leads, joins, or wants a revolution. It's a period of great change. The sentence we're going to see in today's text is, but even if he had been a revolutionary, who knew what the Q really meant and hated the thought? So just like usual, you're going to have 4 minutes to write this down. You have about 3 left. If we were in class, I would imagine that I'd be giving whole class dojo points right now because everybody would be quickly and quietly getting this done, writing an extra sentence for extra credit if you have the time. And as a reminder from Monday, if you were in school, if you were not in school, it was in the Monday video. Miss Cromartie and I will still be grading your do nows. So please make sure that you keep your notebook or the piece of paper you're writing on in a safe place because you will have to turn it in to us when you return to school on April 27th. You have about 1 minute left. All right. That was 4 minutes, so I'm going to put that down. If you did not finish, you can pause the video and finish that way. Moving on to a quick mini lesson. So on Monday, you had a theme worksheet, and the theme was, it's hard to fit in when you move to live in another culture. And many of you found that Moonshadow is having a very difficult time adjusting to American culture. That being said, he is making adjustments as best as he can. He's trying to understand his father better. And, sorry, 1 second. And he will continue to adjust to American culture as we continue reading today. Your notes today, you don't really have notes. You can write this part in either your notes or your classwork section. I just want you to write who, what, when, where, why, and there should also be a how there. I'm going to add really quick. So you're writing those down in your notes or your classwork section. And you're going to be answering those questions as we are reading today. So no notes today. These will be considered your notes, is writing down answers to those questions. So I want to know who is in the beginning of chapter 4, what's going on in the beginning of chapter 4, where does the beginning of chapter 4 take place. The when would be like maybe how long has it been since Moonshadow's been in America now at the beginning of chapter 4. Why is whatever is happening, and how did they get into this part of the plot, this event that's happening. So that being said, please open up your book to page 63, the first page of chapter 4. And again, if you do not have a copy of the book with you, then please go. You should be able to open other things on Google Classroom other than this video. If you can't, then you can pause this video, go to Google Classroom, and open up the readings. Make sure that you are on page 63, beginning of chapter 4. I'm going to go ahead and get started, so if you're not there yet, you can pause here and then play once you're ready. Page 63, Chapter 4, Tests, April 1903 to February 1904. During the next year, I learned that the company was more than a group of men wanting money. We were brothers, strangers in a strange land who had banded together for mutual help and protection. There were arguments, of course, but they always worked out. As for myself, I was treated as a man and not a boy, and the long hours I worked were really no worse than the hours I had worked on our farm. In the mornings, I was the first to get up and make the fire and brew the tea for the others, and through the day there would be various things I would have to do. I did not go to school during the daytime like demon children, because the demons would not allow me to go to any of their schools just a few blocks away. I could only go to a special school the demons had set up in the Tang people's town, which was so poorly equipped and so poorly staffed that I was better off in the company. Page 64. All during the day, Uncle and Father would keep up a conversation with me using what they knew of the demon's tongue, and they made me read and discuss the demon's magazines and newspapers, which some of our friends and kinsmen, who worked in the demon's mansions, would bring down to us. Demonic was easier to speak than to read. It was hard to understand a language that only used 26 symbols, the letters of their alphabet. The letters kept on rearranging themselves in the most confusing patterns. At about 4 o'clock, after I had gotten the fire ready again for White Deer to cook dinner, I would hurry to the Tang people's school, where I would learn the classics of the Tang people. The classics were the books supposedly written by Confucius and the ancients about the correct way to live. Some of them made sense, some of them didn't. As Uncle told me, some of it applied to everyone, including demons, and other parts of it applied only to the rich. When I came home 2 hours later from school, I would be in time to grab a quick dinner from the leftovers, wash the dishes, do my other chores and my lessons, and then go to bed. I worked 16 hours a day and had never been happier in my life. Page 65. The part I liked best was when I went with Father to pick up the dirty laundry and deliver the clean. Because Father could speak more demonic than the others, he always got that job, and he usually took me along. Our wagon was painted a bright red with the company's name in demon script painted in large, bold gold letters on its sides. The wagon was pulled by Red Rabbit, whom we kept along with the wagon in a livery stable a few blocks away in the demon section. Red Rabbit was a big, strong horse, red as fire, with a white star on his forehead. Father had named him Red Rabbit after the speedy horse of the god of war. As he jokingly said sometimes, he thought Red Rabbit would try to live up to his name, but so far the shameless beast had not. Red Rabbit was without a doubt the laziest, slowest horse in the demon land. Uncle said half seriously that it was associating with demons that had made Red Rabbit so lazy. Whatever the reason, neither curses nor the whip, nor kicks nor slaps of the reins on Red Rabbit's big rump could get him to move faster than his slow, deliberate pace, a pace which he never changed, whether we were in the flatlands or on one of the demon's steep hills. But no matter how slow he was, there was always a cube of sugar in my pants pocket. Page 66. In the beginning, Uncle had not wanted me to go out with Father and Red Rabbit. It was dangerous to leave the Tang people's town. There was many a Tang man with a cracked skull or a broken arm or rib because he had crossed over the invisible boundary line between our town and the rest of the demon city. Sometimes the demon boys threw stones, and other times it was a group of restless adult demons who were out for a little sport. But Father said it was time I learned a little more of the demon city. I had already been here a month and never left the Tang people's town. He took me out only along streets that he regarded as safe, either because he knew the policeman on the beat or because some of his customers on that street had banded together and warned the demon boys and young men not to try anything. The first time we went out, I had been afraid of just about everything. I remembered stories about how the hills were made by burrowing dragons, so I was scared to death by the sound of the cable made going through the rails of the cable car tracks, a steady rattling, clacking sound. I thought it was a dragon scrabbling at the surface with its claws, just about to break free. As for the houses, they looked like wooden monsters, hunkered down along either side, waiting for me to look away from them before they would grab me. Page 67. And every demon I saw, I was sure had a stone or a knife or a gun. Father saw how I clutched the seat in sheer fright until the knuckles of my hands were almost bone white. Father began to speak quietly then of all the old ones, the spirits of the dead members of our family, to whom we offered food and the sweet smell of incense that pleased them so well. For their part, the old ones watched over the living members of the family, for one's obligations to the family did not stop with death. Then Father spoke especially of the brave old ones who may have crossed over the sea to watch over us. Among these was my great-grandfather, who had died fighting the British demons when they had wanted to force the Tang people to let them sell opium in the Middle Kingdom. He was on the losing side and was beheaded for his trouble, but Father was sure that he was, for one, would not miss a chance to fight demons again. Father was even more positive that the spirit of my grandfather was with us. I finally found out the truth about his death. He was a proud man who would take nonsense from nobody. One day, shortly after he had arrived, some drunken demons had tried to cut off his queue. Page 68. Grandfather could have sworn a wig if his queue had been cut off. He would not have been the first guest of the demons who had to resort to one, but instead, Grandfather had spat in their faces and busted a few heads, and before the whole thing was finished, he was swinging from a lamppost by some demon's clothesline. Like many Tang men, he did not think of the queue as a symbol of Manchu oppression. Tang men had been wearing their hair in that way for over 8 generations, so for Grandfather, having a queue was part of being a Tang man. He would as soon lose his nose as his queue, but even if he had been a revolutionary who knew what the queue really meant and hated the thought of wearing it, there was still the principle of the matter. The demons had no right to do anything to him physically. Anyway, I understood why Grandfather had died. I let go of the seat, ashamed to let the old ones see how frightened I was. Father did not give me a chance to think about how afraid I should be. He would point with excitement at some new sight, or wonder with me at the meaning of something which we had seen among the demons. There were few things that escaped Father's notice, and even fewer things that Father was not interested in. Page 69. Some of the houses had hitching posts cast in the shape of black demons, but in such odd clothes and of such odd colors that we never could figure them out. I learned later they were jockey clothes. Father and I speculated on the purpose of the figures, whether they were like the lions or the door gods who were meant to protect the house, or what. When we started to make deliveries, I was afraid of going near the houses, but I was even more afraid of being left alone on the wagon. I went with Father, feeling a certain pride in the company's craft as I carried the clean, pressed, and starched clothes wrapped in the crisp blue paper and tied with twine into neat parcels. And then I would help Father carry the dirty laundry back. If the bundle was small, say only about 10 pounds, Father would let me carry it back to the wagon. But sometimes, especially when we were at some mansion, I had to let Father take the load. While we did that, Father began to tell me about his life as a boy on our farm, his first years with Mother, and his first years over here in the demon land. But I liked it best when he sang, in his deep bass voice, some of the silly nonsense songs he and Mother used to make up when they were children. Page 70. One of them he taught me went, "The fox went a-walkin' for to have a little flirt, but it made me so sad, for she had no skirt. The fox went a-walkin' down by the sloes, but it made me so sad, for she had no shoes. The fox went a-walkin' down by the mall, but it made me so sad, she'd no clothes at all." and went on like that for dozens of verses, going through not only articles of tang people's clothing, but those of the demons as well, some of which, when we picked them up, amused us to no end, especially the tons of petticoats and the like that demonesses had to wear. Father sang the song in such a mournful voice that he always made me laugh. Page 71. During those trips alone among the demons, Father and I learned things about one another, and more. We learned about being a father and a son. Every trip was an adventure into a strange, fearful city, and yet I felt safe by my father's side. Anyone who could laugh and tell stories and jokes and sing while he was alone among the demons must know what he was doing. In my own mind, Father was the embodiment of Uncle's superior man. Only once during all those trips did we have any trouble. Some demon boys were out in the street. They stooped as if to pick up things to throw, and Father whispered to me to sit up straight and not show I was afraid. The demon boys called out some things, but we ignored them until we had passed them by. A rock whizzed by my ear and hit Red Rabbit in the side. He snorted, but plodded on as steadily as before. Then came that one fateful encounter with a demon. Because a demon can help or harm you, there is no way of telling if a demon might be testing you before he will reward you, or whether he was trying to trick you. I had been in the demon land for only 10 months, so it would have been about January of the demon's year 1904, when we met Mr. Alger. I remember it was a gray, wintry day. We were making the rounds when we saw one of those horseless carriages stranded by the sidewalk, and a demon in a big overcoat standing beside it. Page 72. His driving cap was pushed back, and he was scratching his forehead in a puzzled way. The metal hood on the front of the horseless had been folded back on top so you could see into its innards. "Whoa, Red Rabbit!" Father pulled at the reins, and Red Rabbit stopped. Father set the brake, and as an extra precaution, he put the wooden block behind the wheel. "Can I help?" he asked. The demon was a big, cheerful-looking demon with a bland, round face. He eyed Father. "I don't know, John." Many demons called Tang men John because they insisted they never could get the hang of our real names. "You know anything about horselesses?" "Some," Father said. Truth to tell, he had never handled a horseless carriage in his life, though he had a book on them and cut out articles whenever they appeared in the demon magazines and newspapers. That was the extent of Father's knowledge, but to know facts is nothing. He had an intuitive feeling for what made the horseless carriages tick. He looked around inside the engine for about 10 minutes and then wiped his face absent-mindedly so that the grease stained his cheek. Page 73. He did not even notice. "Know where there's a garage?" the demon finally asked. Father only grunted. His eyes were shining. He had hardly heard the demon until the demon tapped him on the shoulder. "You sabe me? Garage. Repair my Oldsmobile." As happens sometimes between two people speaking different languages, the demon had begun to shout at Father as if Father were deaf, and the demon could make his words better understood by being loud. But suddenly Father stiffened, hooked up a loose wire, and stood back. "Horseless ready," he said with a satisfied air. "What?" "It ready." Skeptically, the demon got back behind the wheel while Father went to the front near the crank to start the motor. Father put his thumb against his palm instead of putting it around the crank. As he told me later, when the motor took, the crank could move suddenly and break a man's thumb if his thumb was around it. He folded his hand carefully around the crank and began vigorously winding it. The motor caught and started with a chug. The whole horseless began to shake. Father closed the hood. "Here, John." The demon unbuttoned his coat and reached into his pants pocket, but Father shook his head. Page 74. "No tip. Happy just to look at horseless." The demon stopped and studied Father as you might look at a dog that had suddenly said he was going to the opera. "Well, I'll be damned," he said. He reached into a pocket of his waistcoat and took out a card and handed it to Father with a flourish. "I can use honest handymen like you. You come around any time. You sabe me?" "Me sabe." Father nodded. Father went to hold Red Rabbit's head as the demon wrestled the brake of his carriage free with a loud, ratchety noise. Then he put the clutch in. There was the loud bang of a backfire, and the horseless chugged forward. The demon grinned and waved. Father waved back. When Father climbed up beside me, he held out the card. "Here's a lesson for you," he said. I puzzled out the words. Oliver Alger, real estate agent, properties sold and managed, 1200 Polk Street. Very good. Father took the card and put it carefully away in his pocket. Did you see that demon space moon shadow? He was surprised when I fixed his carriage. Machines aren't all bad. Some of them may be the true magic. We might not be able to speak too well with the demons, but in machines there's a language common to us all. You don't have to worry about your accent when you're talking about numbers and diagrams. Page 75. I was getting excited. Maybe the Dragon King was right. Maybe the magic takes a different form in our land. Maybe that's why you don't need words for it. Father wiped his hands on an old rag in the back of the wagon. Then he held up his hands. He had not been able to get off all the oil, for the lines of his hands were still black. Well, repairing the horseless carriage was a lot like healing the Dragon King. My hands just seemed to know what to do. I leaned forward eagerly. Do you think that was the Dragon King in disguise? Do you think it was a test? Father gave my cue a friendly tweak. You're too ready to find tests everywhere, he grinned. Why can't he just be a demon? But White Deer says there are good demons and bad demons. But was he showing us something good or bad? Was it... You talk too much. Father clicked his tongue and shook the reins, and Red Rabbit started forward again. But whatever Father said to me, his meeting with the demon made him look doubly hard through the demon's papers for signs of true magic. Page 76. It might have been that Father secretly took the meeting and the successful repairing of the horseless carriage as a test, but did not want to tell me. Or probably it was simply the change in the demon's attitude from being surly to being friendly that encouraged Father. At any rate, he studied the papers even harder than I did. But not only did I have to learn the demon's language, I also had to learn how to measure time by 2 calendars. There was the demon's calendar, which was based on the movements of the sun with its fixed number of days and months and its 7 days, weeks. And there was the true time of our own home, with its calendar based on the movements of the moon so that the first day of our new year changed with each year, as did many of our holidays. Then, too, our week was 10 days long. But above all, I wanted to learn Tang words so I could write Mother myself and be able to read her letters on my own. And there were a lot of letters, for she had begun to dictate twice a week to the school teacher. In her part of the letter, Grandmother had grumbled a bit about the expense. Not that she begrudged us the extra letters, but their budget was a bit tight. But Mother in her part of the letter had argued that they now had twice as many loved ones to write to in the land of the Golden Mountain. Father had told them that we would tighten our belts a bit over here and try to send on some extra money to cover the mail expenses. In the meantime, we had done our best to match them letter for letter so that they got their money's worth in return. Of course, in her next letter, Grandmother had wanted to know how come we could suddenly afford to pay for double the mail load. Grandmother became quiet, though, when I added my own lines to one of Father's letters. I first wrote to them in late November of the demon year 1903, but because of the distances, it took 2 months, a month for our letter to reach them, and a month for their letter to reach us, for their reply to reach us. That would have made it the first month of our year, 4061, but early February of the demon's year, 1904. Mother told us how proud she and Grandmother were. The school teacher himself had exclaimed over my handwriting and vocabulary, both of which I owed more to Lefty's private tutoring than to my teacher in school. My mother added that she wished I were there to help her go through our box of Father's old letters, for there were now many passages she had forgotten over the years. I suddenly felt very guilty, for in all the excitement of slowly learning about Father and living in the demon land, I had not really had time to think about Mother, page 78. But now I remembered about how it used to be, sitting on the edge of the rice field as she waded through the brown clouded water. I remembered, too, how after the dinner dishes had been washed and dried, we would sit by the small hearth and look at the fire and think of things that we ought to tell Father in our next letter. Or how when we had come back from the schoolmaster, we would spread out one of Father's letters and pretend to read it to one another. Mother had always been good at that, for she would have the schoolteacher repeat a section she was not sure of, despite the schoolteacher's grumbling. When she got home, she could almost recite the letter by heart. She must have done the same thing with the parts of the letter that I had written. "What's the matter, boy?" Father asked, but as much as I would have liked to, I found it impossible to tell him about my feelings, though I think he suspected. He pretended to become very severe with me. "Now don't you go getting a swelled head by what the schoolteacher says, boy." And Father set me to reading the letter out loud, helping me with the more difficult words. We're going to pause there, and we'll finish the rest of Chapter 4 tomorrow. So now we're going to move on to our activity for today. So if you don't already have it open on Google Classroom, please open it. It looks like this. Moonshadow's Point of View, Chapter 4. So everyone should have this open now. If you don't, you can pause the video and open it. Yours might look a little different than this. Some of them look like this, and some of them look like... Sorry, my computer locked. All right, and then some of them look like this with multiple choice options. So it's okay, whichever one you have is the one that you should have. I assigned them based on who should have which version. So for those of you that have the multiple choice version, you should be all set. You shouldn't need any examples or anything. So I'm now speaking directly to the people that don't have the multiple choice version. It says, what is Moonshadow's point of view of the demons based on his meeting with Mr. Alger? So as a reminder, point of view is very similar to like how you feel about something. So I just starred and put a note of feeling. I would recommend that you also put a star with the word feeling next to it so you can remind yourself in case you forget once I log off of this video. But if you're having a hard time understanding the concept of a view of something, how I view the world, how I view a person, if that word view is confusing to you, you can typically replace that word view with the word feeling, and it'll still make sense for point of view. So when I say, what is Moonshadow's point of view of the demons based on his meeting with Mr. Alger, what I'm asking you is, what is Moonshadow's feelings towards the demons? Or how is he feeling about the demons now after his interaction with Mr. Alger? As a reminder, Mr. Alger is the demon who Moonshadow and his father Windrider just encountered with the horseless carriage. A horseless carriage is a car. So this is from the early 1900s. Back then, not everybody had cars with motors in them. So a lot of people got around with a horse and a carriage. So this man must be a rich man to be able to have a horseless carriage, meaning a car, because it is very uncommon in the early 1900s. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about Mr. Alger, and that's the situation that I'm talking about when I ask you what is his point of view of demons after meeting Mr. Alger. So, very important distinction. I'm not asking you what Moonshadow's point of view of Mr. Alger is. I'm asking you what is Moonshadow's point of view of the demons after meeting Mr. Alger. So you and I both know how Moonshadow felt about the demons when he first arrived to America. But now this was his first real conversation with one. So what do you think his point of view is now? How do you think he feels now? And of course, we're doing CER. So the second column, this column right here, again, this is for the people who don't have multiple choice. I want you to give me two pieces of evidence. One in this box and one in this box. So evidence number 1 and evidence number 2. And you're getting evidence only from the pages that we looked at or that we read together today. That is the only place you are getting evidence from. And you are getting evidence that proves to me what Moonshadow's point of view is. So if you say that Moonshadow's point of view of the demons is that they are all evil, awful beings who want to cause harm to all the Tang people, then you need to give me a piece of evidence from the pages today that prove to me that that is true. Hint, hint, that is not true. And then, of course, we need our reasoning. So that is this last column here. And you have 2 reasoning boxes because you have 2 evidence boxes. So you should have that sentence starter, this shows that, or this evidence shows that. And in your own words, I'll put a star at the top with that note, in your own words, you are telling me how that claim and evidence connects. How does that evidence prove your claim? Make sense of this in your own words. Now, if you have this version of the worksheet, it might say extension activity at the bottom. That's because this was originally meant for in class, but because you are home, that is not an extension activity. You must do that bottom activity. So I just crossed out where it says extension activity. So if yours says extension activity, cross it out, put a star there. You do need to do that bottom part. The good thing is that bottom part is super easy. You are just putting everything together from the top of this worksheet, because this is kind of in like graphic organizer form, and you're just going to put it all together to make a nice, organized, clear paragraph. All right, so just like class, this is where we would normally leave you at. Sometimes we get time for the exit ticket, most of the time we don't. So this should have felt pretty normal and typical to a day in ELA class in school. So now I'm going to log off, and you are free to complete this activity. Once you have completed this activity, please make sure you turn in so that Miss Cromartie and I know that you completed it on time. As a reminder, it is due tonight at midnight. If you have any questions, the best way to reach Miss Cromartie and I is to comment on Google Classroom. If we don't answer within 15 to 30 minutes, please text or call us. You can also email if you prefer email. That being said, I hope that you are all still healthy, and I hope all your families are still healthy. Take care of yourselves. I recommend still doing that reference sheet that I had posted on Tuesday, the my body, my brain, my creativity, my family. You know which one I'm talking about. I'm still doing that one every day. I recommend that you do it too. Again, it's going to be a difficult couple of weeks. You might get lonely being in your house and not being able to be out and about and at school with your friends. So please reach out to me, even if it's just to talk. But try to stay busy, get all your schoolwork done, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.